Well, one of my childhood dreams has finally come true. I have purchased the Olympia OL3000 InfoGlobe. This was the absolute pinnacle of technology in maybe 1999. And if you're anything like me, you remember reading the Radio Shack catalog or walking through a Radio Shack and seeing this thing on the shelf and just dreaming about the utopia we would be living in if we had one of these at home. And unfortunately, I never had one of these at home until today. And even better, this one's still in the box. Now, maybe you saw this somewhere else. Maybe you saw it at Sharper Image or any of the other technology cool stores we used to have that are all gone now. But these were sitting out, spinning around, showing a bunch of digital information just floating in the air. And what could be cooler than that, honestly? Cool new ways to show information that today have all been simplified to another color LCD screen. Now, 20 years ago, we never would have dreamed that we would have color LCD screens covering every inch of our lives, but that's where we are today, and this is where we were yesterday. So let's jump in and check this thing out. But first, we gotta talk about caller ID for a second. What is it? Not something you hear about very often anymore. Caller ID in today's world is completely taken for granted. We expect it to be there, or we expect to be on a chat platform that positively identifies who we're talking to up front. But when we had analog phones, what did you have? You didn't even have displays for the longest time. You just had a phone that you'd pick up when it rang and talk to whoever was calling you. And back then, for the most part, whoever was calling you actually needed to be on the phone with you. That meant early caller ID was kind of novel and you didn't have to have it. But as time went on, every phone ended up getting a small segment LCD display, and we got used to being able to see who was calling at a moment's notice. But it's not quite that fast in reality. The way caller ID works is between the first ring and the second ring, it transmits a little bit of a digital signal, basically like a modem talking from phone to phone, and that's what sends the number information and the directory listing, if it's available, to the receiving phone. So it's kind of cool, and also it's a little bit slow. If you picked up the phone really fast, you wouldn't actually get caller ID back in time. So you wanted to always make sure your phone rang 2-3 rings so you could actually see who was calling if you needed it. Of course, having a caller ID on your handset was a bit of a limitation. It meant you had to stop watching your TV show or eating dinner or whatever you were doing and get up and walk across the room and see who was calling. Or just answer the phone, because at that point you were already there. So what if your caller ID messages could just be floating in the air and they were big enough that you could read them all the way across the room? Well, that is the promise of the Olympia InfoGlobe digital caller ID with real-time clock, the OL3000. Let's talk about this thing. First, I do want to mention that it was clearly sold for about $14. I remember it costing a lot more when it was new. It was like $50, $60, maybe even $75 when they were new. And I'm pretty sure I paid about $37 or something on eBay. And unfortunately, it wasn't quite as described when it showed up. It was shown as like used in box, ready to rock. And what I got instead was literally the InfoGlobe tossed in an empty box with a phone cord. So it's missing parts, it's missing the packaging, it's missing the manuals, but we still have one here, and I think you guys are going to absolutely love it. So what's this thing have to say about itself? Easy to read display, identify callers from across the room, just like we said. Caller ID, caller's name and number, real-time clock, time and date, floating messages, holiday greetings, daily messages, and personal greetings. It was made in China, actually in 2002. It's newer than I thought. I remember it being around for a very long time. That's kind of interesting. Fewer interruptions, you can see at a glance who's calling. And here on the back we have built-in year-round greetings, a 100-year calendar, 6 user-programmable alert messages, a caller ID with up to 54 records. Imagine that, you could only keep a record of 54 calls on this thing. So not a lot of memory inside it. It does have a real-time clock and automatic DST adjustment. That's pretty cool. There's also a demo mode and a battery backup that saves valuable programmed information. I hope that battery is still alive, because if it's not, we probably aren't going to get any info out of this. It's not like I have a traditional phone line for us to hook up to and receive some calls. So let's open up the OL3000. Insert batteries provided into the base of the InfoGlobe. Plug the InfoGlobe into an electrical outlet and into your telephone. Press the left button for 1 second to start the floating LED. Those are the easy instructions, and I have to admit, they seem pretty easy. So here's what I ended up with. I did open the box and take a look at it. You guys can also look in the box. There's a bunch of trash in here. They literally took their USPS label or whatever from their printer and threw the trash in the box. That's a nice touch when you're selling stuff on eBay. And just a cheap 2-wire phone cord that they threw in the box because they clearly didn't have any of the other stuff that went with it. But that is sort of like what unboxing the InfoGlobe would have been like. So we'll set that aside, set that phone cord aside. So here is the InfoGlobe. I honestly think this thing is extremely cool to this day. Just a big blue plastic dome with, I'm assuming, what are blue LEDs on the end of the spinning rod. It's not like I've ever taken one of these apart, and it doesn't look like it would be easy to take apart. All the circuitry itself looks like it's on this spinning arm as well. So there's just like a motor down in the middle, spins it around. There's a counterweight over here. And then this little bar right here is the LED display. There's like an SoC right here in the center that looks like it does all the processing. What else do we have to talk about here? On the front of it, we have left, down, select, up, and right buttons. So pretty simple interface, doesn't get much simpler than that. An Olympia logo on top. And here on the bottom, all of our connections. So we have a pass-through for your phone line. We have tel line in the center. Phone for the output over here on the right, and then a class 2 9-volt DC center positive barrel connector at 300 milliamps. With that said, let's get out our universal power adapter and hook this thing up to some power and hopefully get it to spin around. All right, it's time to make some dreams come true. Let's get our power out here, get our power adapter out here, hook it up, set ourselves to 9 VDC. 7, 8. I like to be a little over. Call it 9.5. That way when this thing starts up, it'll pull the voltage down and we should be fine. We're fine. 9.91, 9.90. That's where we're going. Let's see what happens. Hey! She came right to life. Messages? It's got data in it. All right, hopefully you guys can see what I'm looking at here. Cellular call, just random numbers in here. Please don't call any of these numbers because I did buy this on eBay and we can't quite clear it if you want to see a demo of it. You know what's really cool about this thing, showing the message in 3D space and going all the way around? I can see the controls and you guys can see the message. How cool is that? What a great display. 51 new calls, in call. CID list is only showing up front, unfortunately. Oh, okay, so select CID list, erase memory, don't want that, set on off time, set message, set DST, set date format, set time mode. It's actually pretty hard to read this thing. Set date time and CID list, but I just want to see the time floating in the air. I don't know if you guys can hear this thing. It's kind of funny. It's not loud, but it's also not quiet. This is the same thing that all those LED spinning fans are that can show graphics and text, whatever you want. All the old clocks that we loved. You remember the black one where it would spin the time in the air? That was very, very cool. This is exactly the same thing, just turned on its side. It's not like there's an hour meter, but I assume this actually has quite a few hours on it. Somebody used it. It does have calls in its memory, so let's go to our CID list and hit up, down. There we go. Call log. There are 48 new calls. What's next? Okay. I don't want to erase the memory. Set message. M1. We have a flashing M1. I don't know what that means, but let's hit select. M1 daily. Oh, you have to program that message. Who? Using these buttons, you have to scroll through the whole alphabet like hundreds of times. That doesn't seem like a great interface. So, caller ID list, select. Here we go. These calls are all from 2010, so I'm not too worried about them, but let's take a look at this. So we have a private call. Somebody might have star 67, so they didn't get a number. What do we have here? It's cool. In the front, you're seeing like an updated version. In the back, there's a divider bar right here where it's actually updating. So Charles, somebody called in 2010. Update. South. I only see the south. It's actually pretty hard to make out some of these characters, especially from behind. I guess from a distance, like I can see what you guys are seeing and it looks really good. Well, that's basically all there is to this thing. Obviously, it's a very cool clock, especially one that would set itself automatically. This is from an era where clocks, we didn't have NTP, we didn't have a lot of satellite time. Good time synchronization wasn't as prevalent as it is today. So having caller ID set this clock automatically in your house would have been very cool. You gotta think, we were still manually setting time on our VCRs back in these days. This thing is honestly way ahead of its curve. Hey, what's this one? Oh, just a cool animation of 54 caller ID records. It does keep going back to demo mode all the time. Oh, holds 46. Didn't it say 54? Yeah, it does say 54. Why does this say 46? Maybe they gave me the wrong box, but this says it's a .2 on the bottom, so it was probably the last version. I don't know for sure. All right, so there's 38 calls left in the memory. Anyway, this was one of my dream pieces of retro technology, something I always wanted when I was a kid. And I'm sure I begged my parents and grandparents to buy this, and they were both like, that's pretty stupid, so we never ended up with one of these. But it might be dumb. You can't argue with it being cool. So that is the Olympia InfoGlobe OL3000. That is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching Tech Throwback. Don't forget to click one of these videos next. YouTube thinks you'd like to watch that. And I can't wait to talk to you on the next one. And I can't wait to see you on the next one.